Meanwhile, the Supreme Court today restored the bail granted to YouTuber Duraimurugan, who allegedly made derogatory remarks against Tamil Nadu Chief Minister M.K. Stalin. Now, the court said that anyone who makes allegations on social media, everyone who makes allegations on social media cannot be jailed. Now, this case pertains to remarks made by Mr. Sattai, who is with Nam Tamilar Katchi, at a protest that he convened in violation of COVID-19 norms, where he allegedly compared Mr. Stalin to Ravana. Seeking justice, Mr. Sattai had approached the Supreme Court that continued the bail granted to him in August 2021. Mr. Sattai remained on bail for more than 2.5 years. Interestingly, the court also did not entertain the request today to impose the condition on him to refrain from making scandalous remarks while on bail, asking who would decide whether a statement is scandalous or not. As the internet grows in India, the past few years have seen an increasing trend of state governments from UP to MP to Bengal to Kerala and even Tamil Nadu prosecuting YouTubers critical of the ruling party. Will this stop them? Are governments trying to stifle criticism? What kind of checks do independent voices need to have to ensure their content is not dangerous to society? And how can they push back against action by governments? That's what we will try and understand tonight. Joining us now is Duraimurugan, who is the YouTuber in the eye of the storm. Thank you, Mr. Duraimurugan, for speaking to NDTV. Your case stemmed from your challenge to Madras High Court order, which had cancelled your bail. Now, the High Court had observed that you had engaged in further offence by making derogatory remarks against Mr. Stalin. 2 FIRs have been lodged against you. How do you see this reprieve by the Supreme Court today?
Actually, the TMK government is, they are telling they are for freedom of speech. Last 2.5 years, I am completely fighting for the freedom of speech. After DMK ruling, I have arrested for 3 times. First time, June 11. That time, I have been arrested for 57 days in Trichy jail. Then after that, October 11, to the same year, 2021, I have arrested in Takkalai, Kanyakumari. That time I have been jailed for 53 days. Again, I have arrested December 19th, same year, 2021. I have been for Gundas to almost 220 days. So 1 year they have jailed me. So after that only they have cancelled the bail. I am completely fighting. I'm very simple person. I'm from very normal family, very middle class family. I'm against the government.
Right. So many would say that your views against DMK may not be aligned with the people of the state, with most people of the state who have voted for the DMK both in 2021 and 2019. How do you see your own content? And you belong to Nam Tamilar Katchi. What are your primary complaints against the DMK government that you have been showing in your YouTube channel?
No, actually, I'm completely against DMK. Actually, my gene also against the DMK. We are opposed DMK and Congress also. They are the main reason for the Tamil genocide. After 2019 only, we emerged as a political organization, NTK, Nam Tamilar Party. So I am the member of the party. I am the state propaganda secretary. DMK, they are telling we are for Tamil, we are for Tamil culture, we are for Tamil tradition, but they never, they have not done anything for Tamil nation, Tamil culture, Tamil language. The Dravidian model is only for Gopalapuram model. They are only for the family, the DMK party. It's not a party actually. It's a private property. It's a private limited party. 2,448 family members. The total system, the total Tamil Nadu government, the TMK party is only running for their Gopalapuram family, Karnataka family, not for Tamil. If you come to Tamil Nadu, you cannot see Tamil. You never see Tamil. The streets, no Tamil. The temple, no Tamil. In court, no Tamil. In government office, no Tamil. Then how they are saying we are for Tamil, we are for Tamil language?
Sir, in your YouTube videos, I saw that you're also critical of the Dravidian model that many say is responsible for the development of the state and the reason why the state has better social indicators.
No, actually, Actually, our ideology is son of soil. Our ideology is Tamil national. Actually, as a Tamil nationalist, I'm completely against the Dravidian model. I'm not me. All of the Tamil Nadu people are against the Dravidian model. TMK ideology, TMK family, almost or almost 3 to 4 crore people against to TMK, but they're completely buying the voters. 1 to 1.5 crore voters, they are buying for the money. That's why they are won. That's why they are winning.
Okay.
Tamil Nadu people, Tamil people completely against to the Dravidian model and DMK.
Mr. Duraimurugan, as a YouTuber, how do you see your own future now, as a YouTuber? Because the Supreme Court has given you relief, but the laws remain the same, and the Supreme Court has also said that the state government can approach the courts if needed.
It's a basement of Karmavira Kamarajar. After Kamarajar, no CM from Tamil gene, Tamil community. They are only Telugu people, Andhra people, Karnataka family only they are ruling, except Edappadi Palanichami. Edappadi Palanichami also from the Dravidian ideologist. Tamil Nadu people never accept DMK's ideology. Dravidian model is completely the Gopalapuram model only.
Okay, as a YouTuber, do you feel a sense of relief today that the Supreme Court has listened to your views?
தமிழ்ல ஒரு பழமொழி உண்டு, தர்மத்தின் வாழ்வதனை சூதுகவும் பின் தர்மமே வெல்லுன்னு. இதை திமுக அடிக்கடி சொல்லுவாங்க. ஆனா இது யாருக்கு பொருந்துமோ இல்லையோ எனக்கு பொருந்தும். almost 3 years we are fighting. My advocates and colleagues, they are fighting for 3 years. I will continue my YouTube videos. I will completely against to the TMK and the Dravidian model, Gopalapuram model, Karnataka family. I will completely put videos.
Thank you, Mr. Duraimurugan. That is the man in the eye of the storm, Satay Duraimurugan, who is a YouTuber who got the reprieve from the Supreme Court today, and he says that he'll continue his protest and resistance against the misgovernance, the alleged misgovernance of the state government in Tamil Nadu. To help us make sense of these, of the various layers to the story, we also have Nikhil Mehra, who is a Supreme Court advocate. We also have N.S. Napinai, who's a senior lawyer at the Supreme Court, and also the founder of Cyber Sathi. We also have Aditi Fadnis with us. She's a senior journalist and a political commentator. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining us. Aditi ma'am, let me come to you first. There is a trend of FIRs based on content on social media, including YouTube. We have seen this in different states. Whichever party is in power tends to file FIRs against its critiques. Now, the degree may vary, but this tendency is present across party lines, from Stalin to Mamata Banerjee to Pinarayi Vijayan to Yogi Adityanath. How can a society address something like this?
Well, first of all, it was very nice and very refreshing to hear Tamil being spoken on NDTV English. So nice to hear that. You are right, but there's the other side also, which is why should YouTubers or social media influencers get prizes and get accolades from none other than the Prime Minister of India for their content? Why should that happen? I mean, these are you and I as reporters don't even get to meet many of the top ministers in the government. So the point is, the government has certain laws. It uses those laws when it wants to. It disregards those laws when it doesn't want to. You, I, and YouTubers are free to say what we want in the media that tolerates us and suffers us. And governments are free to do what they want. But it's not that you should be rewarded when you are speaking a certain language and be penalized when you are speaking a different kind of language. I think your credibility as a YouTuber, as an independent observer, gets tarnished if that happens.
Right. So laws cannot be subjectively taken into account. Ms. Napinai, there are people who strongly believe that the right to free speech is actually hollow unless it gives you the right to offend. Now, how does one find a balance between freedom of speech and responsible, YouTube content? Because there's also content that can be, harmful to society, something that can hurt religious sentiments, something that can be toxic.
Absolutely, and that's the balance that we'll have to really look for instead of abusing the laws or the processes that are there to protect. So, very simply put, I'll want us to step back, I think, about 8 years plus. And if you remember the background to why the Shreya single judgment came out from the Supreme Court, it was for this very same reason. At that point of time, many state governments were using this one provision under the IT Act, Section 66A, which was struck down by the Supreme Court in the Shreya single judgment. And the background to that was the very first part of that section provided for criminalizing offensive content. And offensive content was left open-ended for interpretation, and that was being abused for various political reasons. Now, when we go back to that and the purpose behind it, it's very simple. Under the Indian Penal Code, and it would follow through in the new Bharatiya Nyaya Samhita also, you have a provision for criminalizing defamation, which will include scandalous content. Now, that is not to be invoked by police. It has to be through a private complaint to a court. The whole purpose behind that is arrest is not a basis for scandalous content. Now, when I was hearing the gentleman speak earlier about the kind of cases that have been filed against him, I'm not going into the specific case, but I'm just talking about the law in general to say that if defamation is not meant to be an offense which invokes arrest, it should not be circumvented through use of preventive detention, etc. Now, that's where the balance between fundamental rights of free speech and reasonable restrictions on it come in. So the Indian Constitution does not give us absolute rights. So your right of free speech also comes with reasonable restrictions. So when you look at 499 IPC and 500, you'll see that there are certain exceptions which say that if you are saying something which has hurt somebody else's sentiments, etc., but if you're speaking the truth, if you're speaking it for a certain good, like public good, etc., the 10 exceptions are what are meant to balance free speech and also protect a person's reputation.
So the exceptions to free speech. Nikhil, would you, she's making a very important point. As a lawyer, also help us understand how can one know if someone has misused the liberty that has been granted to her? And the fact that one of the judges today made an important point, if before elections we start putting behind bars everyone who makes allegations on YouTube, imagine how many people will be jailed. This is what one of the judges said. How do you see this?
Absolutely, and we are a very young nation, and that means also that we have the millennials, the Gen X, the Gen Z, who are all on social media. And therefore you don't want a nation full of criminalized youngsters, right?
Absolutely. So Nikhil, would you like to respond to that?
Yeah.
Nikhil, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, sorry. Look, there are a few simple points I want to make in relation to this. First and foremost, this particular case pertained to a cancellation of bail. Cancellation of bail has very limited, very particular rules that apply to it. Therefore, don't look at this as necessarily a free speech case. The court was examining, seeing the conditions imposed upon his bail and saying, look, you're trying to restrict free speech in a bail condition. And then when we see how he's spoken, that really can't be a basis for cancellation of bail. So that's a narrower thing. Right. But to a larger thing, let's be crystal clear about it. This is the tricky bit that the laws all over the world still are trying to accommodate. For the longest time in human history, all publication used to have some kind of editorial focus, some kind of editorial first step in terms of assessing content before it was published into the broader world. Right. That, of course, dissipates with YouTube and dissipates with other social media. The question then is, does that mean that we apply the same old world rules, old world laws to as strictly as we would to editorial content as we do to non-editorial content? And I think the answer has to be, as uncomfortable as it makes governments, the answer has to be no, we have to move in the other direction. And this is not what governments are doing the world over. You can call whether they are deemed to be right-wing governments, left-wing governments, they're all trying to control information as strongly as they possibly can because they've never actually dealt with this kind of barrage of criticism in the past. And as you correctly pointed out, this is not the domain of one political party. Every single chief minister has, at some point in time, had these kinds of provisions invoked in order to arrest people, to quieten them down, to silence them. The Shreya Singhal judgment was mentioned. Now, I'd like to point out the Shreya Singhal judgment, if anything, upholds a concept of clear and present danger, which was established by Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes in American jurisprudence during World War One. But even that is obsolete in US law for the last 70 odd years. The Shreya Singhal judgment also didn't go into the Brandenburg standard, or what amounts to circumstances in which you can limit free speech.
Right.
Any standard that you establish today, what you've just pointed to me, is a subjective assessment by a judge.
Okay.
Another judge could have a completely different subjective assessment.
Yes,
and so
absolutely.
the idea behind free speech, as you were putting it there, is that we need to have a more objective standard. So if you ask me the question, what do I advise a YouTuber? I wouldn't really know, because I don't know what case government will set up when it wants to. Right. I can only tell you, once they set up a case and I read the FIR, I know this can be defended. No problem. Okay. But I cannot tell you that your case, that most certainly a case will not be filed against you if you say X or Y or Z. That's too great a power in the hands of the state.
Right. Aditi ma'am, laws of course have remained the same and they're also changing in many ways. Are governments, particularly state governments, because law and order is a state subject, more sensitive about criticism these days, or against them? Or is it because there's also a certain political context to this, or has it always been like this?
Of course, it's always been like that. Every state government has used every law it possibly can to curtail, curb, or otherwise put freedom of speech in peril. And it's not just freedom of speech, it's freedom of speech to the point where it criticizes the government, right? It's not freedom of speech where if you are criticizing the opposition, then you are not put in jail. Right. Then you have full freedom to say what you want. So, I mean, these are all very subjective things. If the government feels that it can win people over by rewarding them, by publicly recognizing them, by, bestowing accolades on them, which are then proudly displayed in the drawing rooms of the people who got these accolades. Well, I mean, good luck to them. That's the height of recognition for some. Right. But for others, I think the height of recognition is to be true to what your profession asks of you. Right. Which is to be credible, which is to say what you want to say without hurting or without offending religious or other kind of feelings. So, in other words, just be responsible. Say what you're supposed to do. Say and do what you're supposed to do.
Right. So, Ms. Napine, do you think self-regulation is the way forward? Because, apart from arrests, the government is also moving new laws to strengthen its control over digital media. We have seen these IT rules come up. We saw that the government notified the IT rules, guidelines and digital media ethics code. And then, of course, these rules have very strict deadlines for content takedown, and they also prescribe standards for what digital publishers could be posting on the internet. Of course, parts of them have been stayed by various courts. So when it comes to restrictions on YouTube, how do you see policy changing?
It would depend on what is the content that you're planning to regulate. If you're talking about heinous content such as child sexual abuse material or offenses against women, you know that not just the law but also the Supreme Court has stepped in to place certain restrictions and, more importantly, responsibilities on big tech. So if you're talking about defamatory content or misinformation or disinformation campaigns, especially those that are likely to precede elections, they are likely to be regulated, one, through code of conduct that the Election Commission is likely to implement. And you would also have the existing laws coming into play. And self-regulatory mechanisms that you're talking about are likely to be add-ons. They cannot be the only fallback option here.
Right. Nikhil, would you want to respond to that when it comes to policy, when it comes to restrictions on YouTube? Do you see policy changing? Do you see it becoming better for content makers, or do you see this being better for government scrutiny?
Vasudha, you're literally smirking when you're asking me that question. You know the answer to this. It's not going to get better. It's going to get tighter. It will get worse. Look, there is something called fair comment. Fair comment is an exception to Section 499, which Madam had spoken of earlier, right? What perhaps the court indicated, without putting it in as many words, when it says the sentence which it did, which is that if before elections we start criminalizing people on comments in relation to public persons, then the jails will be full, or words to that effect. That essentially means that in an election environment, in that context, we are broadening, in a sense, the fair comment defense. And so, therefore, let people speak what they wish to speak. This is an election. Some things are only said with higher levels of emotion. It is the nature of an election.
Right.
You can't expect everyone to be calibrated, to be perfectly well thought out, and to present things very well, right? It simply will not be like that.
Right.
Particularly because of the democratic nature of social media. So, but the legislative tendency is in the opposite direction, and at some point the Supreme Court has to bell this time.
Right. Aditi ma'am, last word from you. A number of instances have occurred in Tamil Nadu, but they have also been in UP and Kerala. And some of the YouTubers have also claimed that they receive threats for such content, and that's very understandable. Do you think this is more of a problem in politicized states like Bengal or Kerala, or every state has this problem?
Well, I mean, I don't know what a politicized state is. India's favorite sport is politics. So I think it applies to all over India. The thing is, what worries me is that governments too easily give in to selective targeting of people, both in terms of acknowledging their presence and sort of awarding them, as well as putting their microscopes and picking out the ones that they feel have hurt their party or their interests or their political beliefs. So I think that's a very sad thing for our democracy, and a very dangerous thing for our democracy. And both should be very, very clearly identified as fetters to freedom of speech.
Right. Thank you all of you for joining me on this show. Indian YouTube users have increased nearly 4 times since 2017. So there's clearly a lot of activity going on there. And as elections approach, governments seem to be watching the space as other courts. That's all we have for you in this show. We will be back in a short break.